to today's Policing Tech Forum webinar. We're currently living in an age where you can track the progress of your pizza delivery on your phone. Asking the question now, how can policing take steps to provide a similar, more engaged service to victims and witnesses? In today's session, we'll examine how forces are implementing the MyPolice Portal solution, backed by a national programme to provide elements of consistency and removing any potential for long-term postcode lottery provision. We'll also hear from our session sponsor, Content Guru, about their Storm cloud platform and how it delivers 999 and 101 contact management for the British police forces and also supports thousands of the world's largest governmental and private sector organisations. I'll be facilitating the session and we will welcome questions from yourselves as the webinar progresses. And after we've heard from the speakers, then they'll join me for panel discussions. We attempt to answer as many of those as we can for you. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Chief Superintendent Tony Josephs, the Programme Director for the NPCC's Digital Public Contact Programme. Prior to joining the programme, Tony was a senior leader within the Met's Police Contact Centre. Good morning, Tony.
How are you?
Good morning. Perhaps I can start by asking you a question. You're the Programme Director of the NPCC's Digital Public Contact Programme, which is looking at transforming how the public can get in touch with the police through digital channels. Now, one of those that you've successfully been rolling out is a single online home platform, the police website, which is currently in 40 forces. But for those perhaps who don't know what this is, can you tell us a bit more about it and why it's needed?
Well, Kevin, Single Line Home is a multi-force platform that exists across England and Wales, and it allows members of the public to contact policing at the time and in the place and in the way that they would choose to, in addition to the current mechanisms, which are for an emergency to call 999 and for more routine contact to call 101. So
I'd now like to introduce you to Tony Jackson. Tony is the head of Digital Futures in Merseyside Police. For 17 years, he headed up their contact and dispatch, but in May 22 took over a new role with the aim of driving digital innovation across the force. And a specific piece of work was to look at sustainable solution for contact management. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning.
Perhaps I can start by posing a question to you. You're one of the forces working on the portal product, which we've just been discussing. Can you tell us why you've decided to do this?
I think the journey for the portal really for Merseyside commenced probably around 2017 when we took part in a piece of work with the Home Office to explore and understand exactly what the public expected of the police service in the digital environment. I think the results of that were clear. They expected us to be there, accessible, and they were looking for a consistent message. So if you were in London, Liverpool, Leeds, Leicester, whatever, they just wanted a consistent message. So we did at that time develop an approach whereby we would open the social media account for Twitter and Facebook, where we would take reports of crime and incidents. We then took the Single Online Home in December 18, and during the year of 19, we actually worked with what would become the DPC, Simon Cole's team, and Globin to explore the art of a portal. And the drive really was about making sure that our communities had access to the police. We recognised that, time was moving on, that, telephony wasn't always the preferred route. We needed to flex to what the community was giving us as feedback. And really, if we were going to move forward into a digital contact space, it needed to be driven on what the community wanted as opposed to what we policing think they wanted.
So I'd like to move on now to introduce you to Martin Taylor, the Deputy CEO of Content Guru. And Martin, thank you very much for taking part today and supporting this event. You head Content Guru's public sector practice, operating the technology underpinning services such as NHS 111, the UK-wide ambulance 999 and DVLA. So Martin, welcome to this session, and look forward to hearing your presentation.
Pleasure to be here, Kevin. So run briefly through some introductions, some thoughts on contact management in policing, where it's going, and where we see our role in this might come. So hopefully you're looking at some slides here. So I'm just going to go through really picking up some of the themes that both Tonys have introduced earlier on. So we're talking about things like the public expectations, how those have moved on post-pandemic, which was 5 years ago now, and maybe how policing is catching up with that or needs to catch up. So
if I can come to you first, Martin. We've had a call in, or a message come in. It says a 999 call first needs to be directed to one of the relevant emergency services, e.g. police. Once it reaches police, this is where the call is recorded and processed via the contact centre C&C operator. However, the pre-call often yields vital information. Does Storm capture this pre-call information?
In the case of ambulance, yes. So obviously the top of the call is still the BT 999 operator. Which service do you require? So right now, where we have police forces who are using us, then when it's delivered to that force, then we start capturing, recording everything that's going on. When we are working on the ambulance, on the other hand, we've got even some further insight. So we're able to judge the whole national picture. Every ambulance service, what's their expected wait time, how many call handlers have they got on shift, and then we can really make that intelligent decision. And of course, if there's anything to capture while that's going on, we can do that. Of course, being
if I can come back to Tony Josephs and then probably you, Tony Jackson, we've got a question from North Wales Police about how does the system show members of the public when the investigating officer is back in work? Because without this, it can add more stress pressure on officers to respond within minutes when actually they have other demands.
Hi, Kevin. It's Tony here. I gather I'm off screen because of the bandwidth issues I've got at my end. So if I can just come in there. That's a really, really good question from colleagues in North Police there. It's a similar issue we have, I suppose, with our neighbourhood officers. And you have on the line the ability to find out who they are, and be given a kind of a pattern of when they work. But you send in the request for service, I suppose, to a generic kind of neighbourhood team kind of space to deal with. And it's similar, I suppose, when it comes to MyPolice Portal, in that you have that kind of contact approach with your single investigating officer with your particular case. But they do have a team of officers and staff that work around them for that particular case. I don't think, to be honest with you, to Tony Jackson, I don't think in terms of how we've designed it, there's a real time kind of, like we have in Outlook. If you're on duty, you get a green. If you're off duty, you kind of get a red or an X. I don't think that kind of status of when you're in and out of the office is part of the portal design as yet, Kevin, but I do understand absolutely from our North Wales colleagues where that question is coming from and how we can kind of think about that. Tony, is there anything to add from your end? Are you doing anything really innovative down or up in Merseyside around that?
I mean, I know when we've done the user engagement, that was raised as a concern by detectives. They may go in at 8 o'clock in the morning and suddenly they've got to go and interview a prisoner and there's messages in. So part of the design that we'll do is, because again, they've asked not for single points of failure. So, when we design, if someone's going to send a message via the portal to the OIC in the case, then we're going to try and build in functionality whereby if there's not a response, then it would copy to the line manager. So at least they've got an idea of what the messages are, because that is one of the problems that we have encountered is around, we personalize it, but then we build in a single point of failure. So how do we then expand and make sure that we address that single point of failure and we're not left, as has been articulated, a victim wondering, have you got the message? What's happening? What next? So yes, that is part of the design that we are looking to build in.
Can I just jump on the end there? In other services like mental health crisis lines, where people contact maybe the next day. If the same person is available, and we can see that status from the workforce management tool, then we put them through to the same call handler, because that person just has that greater familiarity. And sometimes it's just hearing the same voice reassures the caller that this is consistent treatment. And it is about that consistency again. But of course, to design out the single point of failure, there should then be a secondary or a routing logic for if that person isn't available. And actually, even in the commercial world, a lot of the time, they will have the same call handler, will deal with each person. It's an incentive to close the case up properly. Otherwise, you'll be hearing from that person again.
Well, I think obviously there's a lot we've been able to discuss there. I mean, perhaps if I go around and see if there's anything any of you would like to add before we sort of wind up the session. Tony Josephs?
Yeah, I think if you zoom out, Kevin, and thank you for the opportunity to just sum up here. I suppose there was a question here about how does policing utilise our colleagues like Martin Taylor and Content Guru in the supplier and partner space, and how we become better at that. I think what we need to do is perhaps be more agile in responding to what technology can do for us. So Martin and his team and other suppliers have got fantastic technology, lots of ideas, lots of use cases of where it's been done in other places. NHS 111 and other places are really valuable to policing to understand. So something about us being open to understanding what supplier value can be brought into the conversation and what other public sector or even private sector organisations are doing. So there's a bit about us being more open-minded, I think, in policing and being more agile to understanding what the opportunities are. I suppose that leads us to being better clients, I suppose, more intelligent clients in the marketplace. There's a lot of, I suppose, market power, spending power that we have across policing, across the 43. And rather than do things 43 times, it might be better to do things less than 43 times. I'm not saying do it all the same, but perhaps do it less than 43. So it's understanding some of those value for money and what you get from a scaled operation, I suppose, is the next point. And my final point is understanding what problem you're trying to solve here, Kevin. Really, there are issues in policing, very clearly articulated by my colleague Tony and others on previous webinars and future webinars. And understanding the strategic risk and needs of policing are really, really key. And once you understand what problem you're trying to solve, then the technology and the solutions and the partnerships can really work towards that. So that's really being business driven, being really clear about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, and then delivering all of those things to the satisfaction of our members of the public. Those are my 3 points there, Kevin.
Thank you. Tony Jackson, is there anything you want to sort of finish with?
I suppose the key element is, to build on what Tony has said there, is that, we've got to be citizen-centric. What is it that our citizens need, want and expect? Do we fully understand our problems, challenges? I think we've got to be more open with what's available within industry. We like to say policing is special. I think we've got to move away from that. I think there's an awful lot to learn from public sector, private sector. I totally agree we've got to be better in terms of, rather than having a client-supply relationship, we've got to start looking at co-development. And I think even within policing, we've got to move away from the silo mentality of one force. It's got to be scalable for policing, because we've all got issues, we've all got solutions, but we need to be better at sharing, because none of us have got a bottomless pit of money. But as I say, the key is we've got to maintain the focus on the needs of the community to make sure that what we're spending is delivered in the area that our communities want.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Martin?
Yeah, I'd say obviously there's a lot of exciting tech out there, and we're talking a lot about things like agentic AI, but it's about the right sort of technology for the right kind of application. So I think it is about engaging with industry and working out your objectives. What is it you're looking to achieve, rather than necessarily being prescriptive. Industry, of course, in tech deals with all sorts of organizations. A lot of clever things we did at the start of our NHS 111 program were a demo that we showed them, something we were doing for a big bookmaker. And it was about identifying the high rollers from a big crowd of Cheltenham Gold Cup or Grand National punters and getting them to that personalised service, they realised that mapped onto people with long-term or end-of-life conditions who needed to be sifted out and dealt with in a personal way. So Agile would be the other thing I would put on there probably. Agile methodologies have been just fantastically successful wherever we've applied those. And by working in that Agile way, you're able to evolve your service over time to take advantage of new capabilities or changes of circumstance and technology. So yeah, engage and be agile really would be the two takeaways from me.
Martin, thank you. Well, as Tony Joseph's sort of alluded to in his summing up, if you like, the next webinar is on the Tuesday, the 25th of February at 10 o'clock. So hopefully as many people will be able to join us as possible, where we'll be looking at the role of AI in contact management in more detail. But for the time being, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you that have sent in questions, but obviously a special thank you to the two Tonys and Martin for your participation and some really interesting discussion, which I hope we'll be able to take forward. So thank you very much all for joining us today.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.